In conversation with Sean O'Neill, award-winning author and screenwriter Sean holds an MBA and is a former CEO who left the executive world behind to ultimately opt for a life of adventure and writing. In his novels, he specializes in quick paced thriller across the romantic, horror, supernatural, and apocalyptic subgenres. He has published 13 novels to date and is well known for his Judgment Day series, including The Plague, Judgment Day, and Demons, Judgment Day. Sean's writing style is often compared to Ernest Hemingway in the manner that he juxtaposed the story. His horror and supernatural stories have earned comparisons to the likes of Stephen King's. Sean is also a trained screenwriter and has adapted many of his novels to screenplays to date. He is also the CEO of Sensory Films, a boutique film script business. And on today's episode of our interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Sean O'Neill. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. It's mid-late February here in Canada, so we're dealing with a little bit of snow. Aside from
Interesting.
that, everything is good.
Interesting. It's lovely, actually. We can do this. I'm so excited. We're going to be having a conversation around the writing. Quite intriguing to me. Now, Sean, could you tell us about your book, The Plague, Judgment Day, which is the fourth book in the series of the Apocalyptic book series? I'd love to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired the making of The Plague?
So the Plague is as you've mentioned, is the first in what will be ultimately a trilogy of Judgment Day books. So the first two have been written, The Plague and Demons. I've started the pre-work on the third and final. It'll be called Judgment Day, The Final Voyage.
Mm.
Interestingly, the first book, The Plague, came about from a dream. Uh,
Wow.
it's it's many of my books have their origins in
Wow.
the subconscious of my mind. It seems that while I'm sleeping, my brain is continuing to create stories. So I woke up one morning and I had this vision of a group of people trapped inside um, what was a medical facility, and they
Mm.
were unable to leave uh, for a variety of reasons, which become clear in the book. Um, and once they are able to escape, I think it's about 4 or 5 days they're trapped in there, they find that the world has fallen to some form of I would call it more of a demonic version of
Mm.
Judgment Day.
Wow. Wow, that sounds quite amazing to me, really. I love the start to the making of it. So thank you for sharing. Then you have the second series titled Demons, which is a follow-up to The Plague. Now, for readers who haven't read that yet and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what to expect picking up Demons?
Yeah, so Demons is I often classify it more as a sister book
Mm.
because it takes place in the same time frame as the plague. So the plague takes place in San Francisco, and both books deal with this concept of a judgment day that's brought about by the fact that the Earth passes into a dark matter
Mm.
area within the universe. And what dark matter does when interacting with normal matter, it's a form of judgment, is as I've created. So Demons takes place in Las Vegas. So I found it very interesting to create
Oh,
a story of facing Judgment Day in Sin City of all places. So the story unfolds about about 2 days after the story starts in San Francisco. So this event occurs in San Francisco. The plague covers that book. Um, the a family or a couple
mm.
trying to rekindle their relationship head to Vegas, to Sin City, to find that this event that occurred in San Francisco has been migrating its way east,
Oh,
and they find themselves equally trapped, but facing the title demons comes about in the sense that the matter causes your body and your soul to
oh,
face its own particular judgment. And there are those who are strong enough to overcome that. And then
Mm.
there's those that fall to their demons. And when they
Wow.
fall to their demons, they become another form of entity. You could think of them as evil walkers. You could think of them as a variety of things that are meant for use by the darkness of the matter within this universe.
Wow. I love the sound of demons. Sounds quite compelling to
Well,
me.
we all have demons, and it's on the cover of the book, right? We all have demons. What would it take?
Absolutely.
What would it take for them to take control? That's the fundamental question.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone actually have a demon in them, you know.
Me too. Trust me, I faced my own.
Honestly, everyone has a demon in them that they're struggling and fighting with. You're all trying to, overtake these guys spiritually.
Yeah, we're always trying to keep them at bay, right?
Yeah,
That's the fun.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. I love the sound of it. Now, there's this question that I love asking authors that come on my show. I've always been fascinated and intrigued about how writers, especially novelists like yourself, craft long sentences and brings works together in a way that it eventually make a great novel. These always leave me thinking about how exactly they got their ideas and inspiration for crafting long, wet, and amazing novels. Now as far as writing is concerned, I'd love to ask you too, how do you get your inspiration and ideas? Where did they come from?
Well, I think in my case, it comes from well, probably more than two places, but I'll call it two initially. The first is as a child or youngster,
Mm,
in my early teens through to my 20s, I was a very avid reader.
wow.
And I read things that were in the space of let's say being more creative than less creative. So the
Mm,
first series I ever read was Lord of the Rings, and
oh,
I could envision the imagery of what was happening throughout the series. So three large books, and I think it took me about 2 weeks to read them, and I was
wow.
hooked. And I continued down the path of science fiction, Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury,
Mm,
and read just about everything any of them ever put out. And then found my way back to fantasy. So I've always had this desire for stories that were outside of our world.
mm,
You have your regular day. In my head, I had another world. And then what accelerated that, I think, was the fact that I'd fallen in love with film as well. So I loved
mm.
to follow a story that had created imagery within my own head
In your
to
head.
a world where you actually could see the visualization of it. Now,
Absolutely.
it was somebody's interpretation of that visualization.
Yeah.
And then there were cases where I felt it was well done, and there were cases where I felt it wasn't well done. And interestingly, I'm going through that process now. So of my now 14 books, I've
Mm,
written the film adaptations for seven of
wow.
them. And we're in the process of I'm co-producing my first film based on one of my own books, and it's interesting because now you're dealing with a bunch of other people, film people, who are saying this is how I envision it. And I'm thinking in my
Mm,
head, I go, that's not how I envision it.
yeah.
So it's we all have a picture. When we read a book, we all have a picture in our head of what the story looks like.
Yeah.
You go to a movie, you have somebody else's picture, and somewhere in
Yeah.
between is the fun.
Wow. I love the sound of this. I love your answer to this question, really. And I love how you get your inspiration and ideas. And again, that, readers have a way of visualizing things in their head. That's quite true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love your take on this, really, Shan. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Now you also have a new release titled Jill. Would you like to tell us about that as well? And I'm sorry, I should have asked you to show samples to the camera when we started talking.
There we go.
Interesting, Jill.
So this is Jill. It's a big one.
Yeah, quite
It's 80,000.
voluminous.
Yes, it is quite voluminous. And I'm hoping that people enjoy, or readers enjoy the fact that there's more words than my typical book. I'm usually around 55,000 words. I try to keep, as I said, my motto is, quick, thrilling, a quick pace, thrilling read. This one
Mm,
is also quick pace and thrilling. It's just a longer story. Now, this one is very different than the books I've traditionally done in the past. It is a thriller. It's a romantic thriller. However, it does have a level of erotica in it. Now, I will admit that is not my bailiwick, so I partnered with another writer. His name is Shiva Kumar, and he assisted me in many of the segments of the book.
Mm.
He is an author, an actor, and somebody involved in the film world as well. So
Wow.
the story is fascinating. It's a woman who was born in 1914 in the Midwest of America.
Mm.
She's she becomes a 6 foot tall, bald albino woman. Her mother died at giving birth to her, and she just lives a horrible life, a horrible upbringing. The theme of the book is she sees herself, as many around her do, as a monster. She
Mm.
ends up finding her way in life, and she ends up in the coast of California, LA, because she's a terrific artist. And one day, after watching the film, um, which one is it? So Wizard of Oz, I should say,
Yeah.
and Alice in Wonderland. So she watches a couple of very creative films,
Wow.
and she decides that's where I want to be. I want to be involved in films, and over
Mm.
time she does. She becomes involved in films, but she becomes involved in horror films, monster films, because of her physique. She wins
Wow.
one day. She gets given an opportunity to be the lead in the year is 1953, post-war Tokyo. The film industry is booming,
Mm.
and she gets contacted through her agent by somebody out of a producer out of Tokyo saying, "We want Jill to be the lead in a Japanese silent remake of the film Casablanca."
Mm.
So this starts a whole new career, and the whole last 2/3 of the book involve her journey uh, through life, through Tokyo, the challenges of her life, the
Mm.
espionage and the non-security of Tokyo. A crew from Time magazine goes over to interview her. She falls
Mm.
in love with one of the cameramen, but she drags him through a dark, seedy, decrepit part of Tokyo, which is kind of where her soul is. So
Wow.
it's a challenging story. My beta readers absolutely loved it. They love
Mm.
the creation of the character. They love this, and again, going back to demons, she has demons. She also
Wow.
has the pain of a childhood where she was abused constantly, inside the house and outside the house. She couldn't walk to
Mm.
school without being called names. You can imagine that in your life. So it's a deep one. It's a bit dark. It was a little challenging for me to write. But I'm very proud of the final product that has come out of it.
Wow. That's amazing, really. I love the sound of Jill. I love the making of it as well. So thank you for sharing. And
Yeah,
now
it's interesting.
let's,
I was going to say the name Jill. Her
yeah.
name in life was Jill, Jill. She changed it to Hill. She inserted the H for hope and humanity.
Mm. Wow. Interesting, really. Interesting, really, Shan. Thank you.
I have a very creative brain.
Interesting, really. I love the sound of it. Thank you. Now, let's talk about your other title, Brian's Stolen Dream, the O'Malley Family Trilogy. Would you like to tell us about the making of that as well, briefly?
Yeah. So that was Brian's Soul Dream, and in fact, I changed the name more recently just to Brian's Dream. I was given advice. That was the first book I wrote, and I was given
Oh,
advice at the time to make. Oh, that name's too short. Now I look back and go, why was I listening to people?
wow.
So the trilogy starts with Brian's Dream, but moves on to Sahara's Miracle, and then finishes with Parminder's Legacy. And really, the crux of the story, again, it was the first book I'd written. The characters are modeled after myself, Brian. So I'm Irish, and the
Hmm.
character in the book, Brian O'Malley, is Irish. He
Wow.
marries a very brilliant a Punjabi woman from India named Parminder Gill. And my wife is Punjabi, Indian. So I created much of the model of the book after the two of us as characters. I lived through
Hmm.
a very difficult period in my life. If you want to talk about demons, I lived
Hmm.
through. Let's just say I'm happy to still be here. So when
Wow.
I wrote the book, I put that darkness into the character of being a good person, pursuing things in life, but being challenged by your own personal demons.
Wow.
The book transcends really at the end three generations. So it starts in Boston in the first book, where the two get married. They face the challenges of the 1980s America, racism, multicultural issues. You can
Mm,
imagine what it was like back then. They have two children, and then and they deal with the IRA. I know a little bit about the IRA, I must admit.
wow.
And they deal with the IRA, and I'm not going to tell how everything ends, but the second book is written from the perspective of the daughter. There's a son and daughter,
Mm.
Sahara, which is my daughter's name, and Dylan,
Oh.
which is not my son's name because I don't have a son. My other daughter is Jasmine. So I chose one
Oh.
of them to be. So Sahara's Miracle is about the daughter growing up to become a powerful force in nature.
Wow.
Um, and then the third book is the daughter and the son returning to India, closing the loop of their mother, Parminder,
Wow.
and finding love and a world they never expected there.
Wow.
So it's very spiritual. It touches on a lot of Indian mysticism. I've spent a lot of time in India, being married to an Indian woman.
Mm.
I know much about the culture. I've often been asked if the name I used in the book, my own name, is not a pen name that was actually written by an Indian woman.
Wow.
No, no, that was me. I came up with it.
Wow.
So it's different than my horror stuff. It's very personable. Uh, it's got the whole family concept. It's got the structure of the ability to communicate cross generations, cross the barrier of death, and guidance from beyond. And it has wonderful, wonderful moments in it. It's more of my lighter stuff.
Wow. That's beautiful, really. And I love the themes that these books are centered on. Sounds quite compelling to me. So thank you for sharing, Sean.
It's of all my books, that series is my highest rated from readers.
Mm,
So
mm,
there there are a lot of readers who have very much enjoyed it. My other stuff's well rated. It's harder, right? And there's some people sometimes that will read some harder stuff and say, no, it's not for me, right? So
yeah,
um,
that's
you,
great.
you face that challenge as a reader.
That's great. That's amazing to know. And I'd love to ask you, Shan, as authors, we'll all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know
Yep.
your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative reviews of your books in case you've ever had one in time past?
Um, Now or when I first started? I'll tell you.
I think
I'll
you'd
tell
have
you.
to answer both now and when you first started.
Yeah. So I'll say when I first look. You write a story on your own, and then you suddenly realize, hey, I think I'm going to publish this thing. And when you do, you expose yourself to the world. There's no question, and you expose yourself to the opinions and criticisms of others. It's wonderful to get a 5 star and somebody say, "Oh, this book made me cry. I laughed," and then you get 1 star saying, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." Um, I'll tell
Well,
you, the plague. I've had some interesting feedback on the plague. Um, it's my most sold book. It's my best
mm,
six books. Uh, but I've had people read it and say, "Oh, what an awful book."
wow,
It's about not that the story's awful. It's not that it's badly written. My stuff's very well written.
wow.
The concept of the story they didn't like. Right? They didn't like this idea of a plague and of demons. Well, I'm thinking, why did you buy the book? It says right on the cover what it is. So, anyways,
Oh,
so you have to take it a little bit of a grain of salt. What I
mm,
do, I read my reviews. Um, my initial reaction to negative reviews is, oh, you know, they don't know what to talk about. But I will say, I will go back the next day. I'll read it again. And there are cases where what they've pointed out are valid criticisms. And if it's a valid criticism, I will address it in the next edition of the book if I feel that it makes the story better. And there
mm,
have been numerous times that I've had that. So
wow.
I think you become a better author, you become a better creator if you listen to what people have to say about your material.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
may not always be easy, but you develop a thicker skin. I'm 6 years in now, 14 books in. I can handle it.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's very true. I love your take on that. And I love to ask you, Shan, apart from the Apocalyptic series and the O'Malley's Family Trilogy, do you have another works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
So I do have a series of supernatural books, including this one here, The
Oh,
Chosen. So this one
yeah.
is the one that I am currently co-producing the film for. It's been an interesting journey on this. It's a dark Irish supernatural thriller. It takes place primarily in in Belfast region of Ireland, starting in the early 1970s into the early 1990s. So it
Mm,
too deals with the IRA. It deals with the prevalence of the Catholic Church. It deals with the border and the boundary between um, through Belfast between North and South, right? So you've
mm,
got Protestant, Catholic, but it's got again my concept of dark spirits, and my concept is a little bit more universal. I'm a bit of a scientific guy background, so I can talk about the Higgs and uh, elements. I can talk about dark elements. I can talk about sort of this concept of the
yeah.
fact of the universe that um, people don't always, you get a lot of stories where they say, oh, it's a demon. Okay, well, what kind of demon? Like, and why is it here? Where does it come from? So I kind of deal with a
Mm,
lot of that in my stories. So The Chosen um, has some interesting twists towards the end. It's the individual, the lead in it is Kevin, Kevin O'Brien, and he starts out as a 12-year-old in 1970 and ends up
mm,
in the 90s as a 32-year-old cop. And
wow.
well, he's with the Garda in Dublin. He ends up going back to Belfast to chase down a series of ritual um,
Mm,
child murders, and he finds that he himself has some involvement in what's going on unknowingly from the events of
mm,
his childhood. So it's dark. It's again my dark side. I've got a light dark side.
yeah.
Um, it's dark. It's looks like it's likely to get made. We're through most of the financing now. We've got Mickey Rourke in it. We've got a bunch of other actors, and then we're just working on the final major actor and signing on the director. So we'll give you an opportunity to go through that process as I spoke about before. That visual in your own head. What's it going to look
Mm,
like when you're sitting in the cinema and watching
mm.
a reproduction or a representation of your own creation? And I'm not sure. This will be my first time. I'm anxious to do it, and I hope I walk out of the cinema really happy.
Yeah. That's quite fun. That's quite fun. I love the sound of that, and I hope it goes on successfully. Hopefully, when it's
Me
up,
too.
we'd love to have you back on the show. That'll be great, really.
Thank you. It would be great. I'm anxious to see it. I will tell you, making a movie is one hell of a challenge.
That would be
Far more
great.
than I thought it was.
I'm also curious to know if you experience any challenges in the process of writing your books. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Well, so there are always challenges. I mean, you start with this. I'm a bit of what's called a loose writer, so I don't map everything out. I kind of create it as I go along. So there's a
Mm,
challenge of the integrity of the story. In my head, I've got this great vision of a story. As it plays out, sometimes as you're writing it, you go, "Oops, that's a bit of a hole. Oh wait, how am I going to tie that up?" So I mean, those are the
mm,
daily challenges of a writer. You're trying to make sure that the story holds together as a whole. For me individually, I grew up in French before I went to English school.
wow.
So I did all my primary school grammar and so on in French. And
Oh,
I struggle, I'll admit that despite the fact that I have an MBA, I
wow.
struggled with the clarity of grammar, the perfection of grammar. So my early works at times took knocks for the grammar, quality of the grammar in them. So that has been more of a latter struggle for me or a challenge for me,
Mm,
um, is to be able to get down to a degree of perfection. So I work with a team of editors who keep me in line. But it's taken me a little while to accept, or it took me a little while to accept the fact that
mm,
um, people can get distracted by challenges in grammar. So you sort of lose the flow or connectivity of the story. Uh, there's also, everybody talks about getting stuck, right? You sit at the the old adage of you're sitting at the typewriter. There's no typing
Mm,
going on. I can't say that I've ever really struggled with that. There are times that, you're 45,000 words into a book. You've been working on it for 2 months solid. And you get a little bored. You've gone over the story 100 times in your head, right? And you're like, these guys again, talking about the characters of the book. So what I do for that is I actually keep a couple of projects on the go at all times, sometimes a
wow.
third. So I'll have my primary book, I'll have the next book I'm doing, and I'll have a screenplay.
Mm,
And focus, I'll put like 80% of my time is on the primary book, but I'll split my time across the other two just to get rid of the monotony of telling. You're retelling the same story over and over as you're typing a book, because you go back and you reread it, you reread it. So yeah, there's a little monotony there. So it's keeping things spicy, and that means having the alternative of a screenplay and the next book to go to if I need a
yeah,
day to sort of clear the head.
yeah, that's amazing. That's so much amazing, Sean. I love the sound of it. And now I'd like to ask you, in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of any of your books, on what
Sure.
platform are they available on for purchase?
So I centralized on Amazon a couple years ago. I was sort of more widespread. I
Mm,
found 96% of my sales were on Amazon.
wow.
And by standardized, look, I'm not promoting them or not promoting. They provide a very good platform for authors such as myself to
Yeah,
be able to produce their works.
yeah.
Um, there are challenges with them as there are with everybody else. I was on Kobo, Barnes and Nobles, other platforms. I just didn't find that they had the reach that Amazon does. So
Mm,
I've got it down to a science now. I have a process for every book release. I use external editors. I use external advertisers, marketers, and so on. So, and I've toyed with bookstores. I've been in and out of some bookstores.
mm,
If you're published by a major publisher, the whole bookstore side, in my opinion, works well. If you're not, you've got a ton of overhead to manage it. So
mm.
I'd rather put that time into the creation of the next one, and or managing what I have to manage from an Amazon perspective. So yes, Amazon, I am there. You put my name in, Sean O'Neill, with one L, because there are O'Neills with two L's, and my books will show up. I have an authors page on there. I have my own website. I'm on goodreads.com, so you can
Yeah.
sort of get people's opinions of my books on there. And I'm on IMDb as well from my film
Oh,
side. Yeah, so I'm kind of all
interesting.
over the place.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Shan O'Neill's books directly on Amazon and also another platform. I also left a link to its website and other social media platform
Yeah,
for possible
yeah, I have a
followings.
yeah,
So,
as you know, I have my own website as well, so which is more informative than anything else. I like to be able to tell a greater story to
yeah,
potential readers.
yeah. So thank you so much, Shan, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to explore me and my creations, and I hope people out there enjoy both the interview and the
Absolutely.
the books that I've
Yeah.
written.